and thank you so much for joining us on another session of Dialogues That Matter, a series where we talk to change makers who are doing stellar work in their own field. We know it's been a while. It's because we were curating a series of some really interesting conversations where we wanted to speak to people this month from people who are in the people who are doing work for children, this month being Children's Day. To that effect, we have someone who we are honored to have on our platform today, and we are super excited and stoked to take this conversation forward. Without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Shekhar Seshadri on today's interview. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us and giving us your time.
Thank you very much.
It's an honor. And for those of you who don't know about Sir, let me give a small intro so that you guys are all are all aware of who Sir is. So Dr. Shekhar Seshadri is a graduate from the Maulana Azad Medical College, which is situated in Delhi, who holds a postgraduate degree in psychiatry from National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience, which is NIMHANS in our Bangalore. He's currently the senior professor in Department of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry and the associate dean of behavioral sciences in NIMHANS, again Bangalore. Apart from that, he believes in work. Besides that, he works with children and adolescent mental health, including developmental disabilities. He's actively involved in the areas of gender and sexualities, as well as violence, trauma, and abuse. And I can just go on and on and on. But we are super stoked to have you, sir. Thank you so much. Like I said, I would like to begin by jumping right into it by addressing our topic for the day, which is basically childcare and parenting in India. I'd like to start by asking if you could tell us what do you think childcare is, and how would you highlight it at different stages of upbringing, for a parent or from a child's perspective?
I think, Shruti, I'd like to predicate my response on a fundamental and a very strange reality.
Right.
There is training and accreditation for every skill in life, but not for two things: marriage and parenting.
Right.
No school, no degrees, no
Right.
college.
Right.
It's expected that you're naturally endowed
Right.
to live out the responsibility that these two institutions, that of marriage and that of parenthood, come with.
Right.
But let's come to the fundamental question that you're asking about care. That I would like to look at the whole issue of care from the perspective of what the needs of children are. What do children need
Right.
in a
Right.
home? What do children need in a family? What do children need from their parents?
Right.
And there's a whole list, nutrition, food, love, attachment, affiliation,
Right.
opportunity, direction, encouragement, safety, and the list is wide. And this is what care means. Now it's interesting. If you look at just the love needs of a child, under what circumstances would the love needs of a child not be met?
Right.
Is it because parents have their personal problems and discord? And because of those preoccupations, perhaps, parental separation, that somewhere the attachment needs and the love needs of the child are not met with. So care is something that really provides to the optimal development of a child. It's not just provision of what is systemically and materially required. You'll do all of that,
Right.
about good food and ensuring safety and admission in the right schools, admission in the right school, even before the child is born.
Right.
You, because of the clamor to be in good schools.
Right.
But it's about what you do to provide to the emerging identity of
Right.
the child, and the emerging personhood of the child, so that the child feels a sense of affiliation to this family, and that's the philosophical or the ideological essence of where caring really comes from. That
Right.
that's something I wanted to state to start with as we negotiate the rest of this wonderful opportunity that dialogue space has provided in really addressing the whole issue of parenting.
Right, right. I think I think what you said is very rightly said, right? It's almost expected of any parent कि बच्चा आ जाएगा और हम parent बनना भी सीख जाएंगे, right? That's the thing that you hear very often, and that's how the society has worked for a very long time. And I think the point that you bring up about belongingness makes a lot of sense about how, you know, the primary motive of childcare is about where the feels belong. I think that makes a lot of sense. So something very interesting that you had shared with me when we started this conversation was that I mean, when we started interacting with each other, is that in a society like ours, there's this lost culture of conversations that you brought up, versus there's this whole culture of enforcing certain instructions or expectations either directly or indirectly on kids, right? And we all know this at some level. We have all experienced this. What is it that you would like to comment on when we talk about this with respect to the Indian society specifically?
I want to paraphrase what you have said and started.
Right,
The nature of adult-child relationship, a parent-child relationship, is structured essentially on the culture of instruction, expectation, and control.
right,
आदेश, उपदेश और अपेक्षा की
right,
संस्कृति,
right,
not on a culture of conversations.
right,
वार्तालाप और चर्चा की संस्कृति नहीं है.
right,
Uh, and if there is no culture of conversations, how will children construct knowledge,
right,
about life, about people, about relationship, about values, about decisions, about choices,
right,
about health, about safety, about aspirations? That's one part of my response, but
right,
I have a major response that is very fundamental and moot to this issue of the culture of relationships. And that is about the kind of memories that parent-child relationship actually help in developing for a child, which 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, this child will remember that.
right,
And this issue is really addressed in a question that one may put to a 35 or a 40-year-old कि बचपन के बारे में क्या याद है आपको? What do you remember about your childhood?
right,
And you will remember that which is a memory. And a memory is something that either happened very often or it happened once, but it was unforgettable because it was so joyous or so horrible.
right,
And so, what are the kind of stories, therefore, that construct this memory and therefore the nature of experience that occurs in parent child relationships? You know
right,
what I remember about my childhood? I remember that in my house, there was this 100-year-old antique bell, and it was my job to ring it during mealtime. And, all my family would gather, we will sit and talk, and such joyous memories. And now, at the age of 35, it has pride of place in my house.
right,
You know what I remember about my childhood? I remember that we had a family tradition that every year or every 2 years, dad who worked for the government would take leave travel concession and we would travel to all parts of India, and the whole planning and the packing and the train journey and marvelous. You know what I remember about my childhood? I remember that we had a family tradition that every week we'd go to the nearby orphanage and do some seva, some social work. और वहाँ से
right,
मुझे प्रेरणा मिली. I got the inspiration to do social work, and I did my bachelor's, my master's, and here I am now in this company as the head of human resource development.
right,
You know what I remember about my childhood? All I remember is bickering and fighting and thinking, why the heck was I born in this family? All I remember about my childhood is night after night putting my ear outside my parents' door to listen whether they were killing each other or not. Now, this is very amply, exemplified in this beautiful lyric sung in the mellifluous voice of the late Jagjit Singh. When he says, "ये दौलत भी ले लो, ये शोहरत भी ले लो, भले छीन लो मुझसे मेरी जवानी, मगर मुझको लौटा दो बचपन का सावन, वो कागज की कश्ती, वो बारिश का पानी, वो कागज की कश्ती, वो बारिश का पानी। ये दौलत भी ले लो, ये शोहरत भी ले लो,
Right.
टेक अवे माई वेल्थ, टेक अवे माई नेम, भले छीन लो मुझसे मेरी जवानी, यू कैन टेक अवे फ्रॉम मी माई यूथ, मगर मुझको लौटा दो वो बचपन का सावन, रिटर्न टू मी द स्प्रिंग ऑफ चाइल्डहुड, वो कागज की कश्ती, वो बारिश का पानी, द पेपर बोट that I used to float in the puddles made of the rainwater.
Right. Right.
Culture of conversations, culture of
Right.
experience.
Right.
And that's what parents can do to make childhood joyous
Right.
and so enormously fulfilling and evocative for children.
Right.
Over to you,
Right.
Shruti.
Right. No, I think firstly, thank you for that small piece that you sang. I think at this point, I'd like to inform the audience that Sir here tells me that he's an accidental doctor. He has he has training in music and arts a little bit. So thank you for that. And yes, you have raised a very great point, and that kind of also brought back some memories from my own childhood, especially because my dad really loves Jagjit Singh. So thank you for that. From there, I think I just want to take a small point that you brought up, which is that these parent-children relationships, they evolve, right? So right from when we are kids to when we become adolescent or even teenage, and then we become adult ourselves, right? So this relationship kind of changes. How would you kind of? I know it's a massive question. What would you like to talk about this, and how that kind of shapes how these kids then become parents, and then how it's a never-ending cycle?
It's very curious you should ask that, Shruti, because my question is, do these relationships and dynamics and does the valence actually change? And let me
Right.
tell you something about our culture. Parents fail to re-establish adult relationships with their children when
Hmm.
they grow up. There
Hmm.
is no such thing as adult children.
Right.
They are adults.
Right.
They're not children anymore.
Right.
And the funny thing is that you could be 50 years old. You could be getting your 24-year-old daughter married, but to your 80-year-old father, you're still an idiot.
Right. Right. Right.
So these dynamics do not change. But there is a
Right.
second issue to the question that you're asking. It works both ways. My parents brought me up this way. Therefore, I will also bring up my children in a
Right.
similar way.
Right.
My parents brought me up this way. Therefore, I will never bring up my children this way.
Right.
So a lot depends on how your experience of parenting imbues you with an identity that is either affirmative or not,
Correct.
and how that then determines the kind of ideology you bring in into your adult intimate partner relationship, and then into your parenting role, and then into your grandparenting role. And so these dynamics and fluxes that really take place in how people think out their adult lives curiously work in both ways.
Right.
But a lot of it really has to do with a failure to recognize the agency um, of children, that children, not as children, but children as people,
Right.
as emerging citizens, um, who have their own thoughts and choices and aspirations set. So this is not to say that a house or a family can be completely um, democratic in what's the word, laissez-faire
Yes.
way, कि जो मर्जी कर लो. That's not the point.
Right.
Children need direction. They need boundaries, but those boundaries need not be militarily enforced.
Hmm. Right.
So it raises the question, this whole question then of discipline or disciplining. Do children need discipline?
Right.
Do they? Maybe they do. Yes, they do. No, they don't. I don't know. Perhaps, maybe. I mean, everybody needs discipline. Yeah, come on.
Right. Right.
Do children need disciplining?
Hmm.
Does the disciplining need to be through punishment, and does the punishment have to be corporal?
Right.
Now that's where we need to, and what does egalitarian democratic ways of functioning in a family mean then? And
Right.
things happen in a family. It's not that things do not happen. Children have difficult temperaments sometimes. They may be difficult, they may have challenging behaviors, but there are ways to deal with this. And this is what is called as by the generic term of positive parenting. That,
Right.
instead of
Right.
feeling forced and compelled to take extreme positions when you're in challenging situations. Um, and for the child to understand that if there is an issue, that the problem is not the problem, you're not the problem.
Right.
What I'm speaking about is your behavior, not about you.
Right.
I did not like your behavior. I'm not, but that's very difficult for children to understand
Understand.
sometimes.
Right.
You know, when you say I didn't like what you did, in their concrete interpretation, they think you're saying I don't like you.
Right.
And so one has to be very careful to say,
Right.
I will always love you and cherish you. I like you deeply for all the gifts that you have. It is this particular behavior that I'm talking about that was
Right.
upsetting.
Right.
You needn't even use the word like it, that I was a little upset or I was a little disconcerted.
Right.
And, I wish we could speak about it in a little more to understand why it happened, how it happened, so that, in future, if there was a similar circumstance, perhaps we can have better ways of responding. And
Right.
so those are some of the thoughts, Shruti, that I
I
have.
I just feel like I need to have a notebook and pen and just write down tips for my future and when I get to a point when perhaps I will be parenting. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, which actually brings me to another point, right? So I have a younger sibling. She calls me half her parent, right? And if you talk about a culture like ours or larger countries, some of our countries around the world, a lot of the parenting doesn't take place between just the biological parents. It is beyond that. It's beyond the distant relatives. It's about extended family. It's about the school and a whole bunch of things that kind of come into play, right? It could be extended social groups and so on and so forth. How
Right.
do you think that contributes to a child's upbringing and the care that kind of is given, or the kind of community that the child is kind of fostered in?
Enormously so, Shruti, in the lives of the millennials.
Right.
And I use the word millennial not in any disrespectful, pejorative
Right.
fashion. Um, how things were in terms of the family structure, uh, and in the kind of cultures that existed 50 years ago and how they exist now are very different.
Right.
And it's very curious that there is so much of literature on the psychology of marital relationships or the psychology of parental relationships. There's
Right.
hardly any literature on the psychology of sibling relationships.
Right.
How come there are siblings who hate the sight of each other? And how come there are
Right.
siblings who are such good friends and closely bonded that their bond
Right.
is even deeper than the bond that
Right.
either of these siblings have with their parents
Right.
and what is it that determines this? So this brings me to a very fundamental issue, which I think is the limitation of the definition of the word parenting itself, and the etymology of the word
Right.
parenting, which comes from Latin.
Right.
Um, uh, and somewhere I think that whole notion of the origins of the term parenting has got flattened out as we hope that the COVID curve will flatten out
Right.
and we reach herd immunity going ahead. That
Right.
and in the last decade or two, the emphasis in child and adolescent development and the role of peer relationships and the role of extended adults in children's lives have become increasingly important. And for each child, each adolescent, youth, young adult, who he or she is at that point of time in his or her own emerging narrative and history and story, and what role do you attribute to मैं आज जो हूँ,
Right.
उसका संपूर्ण हिस्सा जो है उसका संपूर्ण महत्व मैं अपने माँ बाप को देना चाहता हूँ, समर्पित करना चाहता हूँ, as opposed to saying that they were incidental, but what changed my life was my relationship with this particular teacher, because if this teacher had not come in my life, I would not have. And let me give you an example from a very simple psychological term of It's an example I often use in many of the programs I do. This was about a 35 or a 40-year-old techie, US based, who came back to school,
Mhm.
who went to meet his teacher, who was on the verge of retiring, his teacher at the age of 14, who he was meeting, after 26 years. And he goes to the teacher and says, "Teacher, do you remember me?" So, she looks at him, "No, no, child, I don't." And he says, "But I've never forgotten you.
Mhm.
I don't know whether you recall, but I came from a particularly bad family circumstance, and serious issues of lack of rapprochement in the family. And the unfortunate truth is that I'm not in contact with my family because they were most unsupportive, and I'm on my own. But you may not recall. I don't know what it was that you saw on my face one day in class when I was really down and things were really bad at home. And I remember you did not do me the indignity of calling me out in front of the other children in class. You very quietly called me aside when the kids had left and asked me, "Child, you appear a little out of sorts and a little down today. Is anything the matter?" And I told you what the circumstance was. And it's not that you did anything magnificently psychological. You said it must have been so difficult to keep all this inside of you. And I'm so happy that you told me. And if there's anything I can conceivably do, please don't hesitate to call me in. And I have never, ever forgotten that act of kindness.
Right.
You'd be surprised
Right.
how much children remember the. So, passages in human beings' lives, and how even one interaction with one person can change the trajectory of. And one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had is when people have written to me, you know 20 years later, perhaps, "Doc, perhaps you don't remember me. I'm at a stage in my life where my family has finally accepted me, in the context of some identity issues, perhaps, a gay identity issue. And the way you stood up for me, at the cost of the consternation that my parents have, that we brought him to you thinking that you would throw. This was in an era where people were more conservative, and all the activism hadn't started.
Right.
And he person writes to me saying, I cannot tell you what it meant to me, to have one person supporting me of this nature. And we do it because this is part of our obligation and responsibility, to
Right.
support the well-being and identity of your person. So you'd be surprised how one interaction with one adult who may not be an extended family,
Right.
who may be a teacher in your life, can make a difference in the trajectory that your lives take. uh, so yeah, Shruti, it's increasingly, I think, who we are today, and the extent to which it is determined by what our parents do. And this is not in any way to discredit the role that parents play in people's lives, particularly those parents who are deeply caring and sensitive and egalitarian in the way that they look at relationships, and how democratic they are, and how loving, and how they create an evocative atmosphere of both opportunity and imagination for
Right.
their children. So this is to salute all those parents, who do this, but this is also to salute all those caregivers and
Right.
service providers in institutions, Shruti. People,
Right.
kids who don't have parents, who've been abandoned,
Right.
and those people, who provide a sense of dignity
Right.
to these kids as they grow up. So that's the broad framework of, and how
Right.
that friend who stood by you, uh,
Right.
when you were really down and out, and who you could unconditionally rely upon, and who never judged you, despite the fact that you did terrible and horrible things,
Right.
and other people castigated and criticized you.
Right.
But this friend stood by you. Not that he endorsed some of the horrible things that you did,
Right.
but um, he stood by you, and was honest.
Right.
Mm. And that honesty came back to you later to say that, how balanced this friend of mine was, to say that perhaps in future you could be a little circumspect in what you did, because I don't want you to be unpopular.
Right.
Um, but I just want you to know that I will always be your friend. And finally, in response, um, this is a question I always put to people. What is the between loyalty and fairness,
Right.
which is a superior value? And here's the example. If Shruti is my friend, and I hit a younger and a smaller child, loyalty means Shruti will try to protect me, but fairness means Shruti will tell
Right.
me, look, I will always be your friend, but what you did was wrong.
Right.
That's what fairness means.
Right.
So that's the kind of possibility there is in how different people play a role in the way that we emerge as. So the whole parenting issue has got flattened in the way that our identities are an amalgamation and a sandhi. ये संधि जो है अलग अलग अनुभव का, अलग अलग तजुर्बों का, जो अलग अलग लोगों से आता है, and how this amalgamation really then combines together to create what we see as our current existing identity,
Right.
affirm or otherwise, as the case may be.
Right, right.
Shruti?
I think that's very beautifully put. I mean, a lot of us do know what you're talking about, that, we are a culmination of a lot of people who have kind of put in effort to bring us where we are. But to kind of put it in those words kind of puts a lot of things into perspective. So thank you for that. I want to touch about two separate standalone questions that do not make sense together. One, because it's your specialty, I would like to understand why there is a dearth of conversation around sexuality in the Indian context, at least in the mainstream level, at the parenting level, because a lot of Indian kids especially learn things only from peers and influences, bad or good. What are your insights into that, Doc? Because you're in this field, so I'm sure you have a lot to tell.
The, let's look at it in two contexts. One is there is generally an absence of a culture of conversations between adult and children.
Right.
There is also an absence of a culture of conversation between adults themselves
Right.
on issues that are considered as personal and private,
Right.
such as sexuality. And
Right.
one understands that this
Right.
is not about standing in on the rooftops and talking about what you do in the privacy of your houses and the privacy of your bedrooms. That's not the
Right.
point. Of course, we respect the dignity and privacy of.
Right.
The second issue is the
Correct.
unfortunate confusing and reduction of sexuality to reproductive biology, and the further reduction
Yep.
of reproductive biology to an act, a physical act.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shruti, just a question. Dialogue space is an adult space.
Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes.
a
Yes.
it's a
Yes.
16. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So we have an A plus
Yes.
rating or whatever.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. That
Thank you for clarifying. Actually,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, because I'm going to get into some core stuff here, which is why
Sure.
I wanted to confirm that is the reduction of it to an act, and the act, namely one of penetration and ejaculation.
Right.
Now that's reductionist, because sexuality is that's one part,
Right.
and in the ultimate analysis, they may be not uh, that prolonged or that important.
Right.
There is relationship, there is love, there is attraction, there is commitment, there's dialogue, there's conversation, there's aesthetics. There's so much more to. There are so many more non-corporeal and non-physical aspects. So this reduction of sexuality to physicality and physicality to genitality and all
Right.
the erogenous part is very reductionist.
Right.
Which is not to say it's not important. Of course, it is in an
Right.
individual and a private relationship. That
Right.
now, where do adults talk about these? Now, let me cut back to our own training in medical college. That where is the exposure to communication? It's all about anatomical parts and reproductive physiology and biology. but not about the emotional and psychological aspects of.
Right.
So people who come with, let's say, sexuality related problems and all that, and it's relegation to the back alleys and bylanes of, and the nukkads and galiyan of various cities jahan wo board lagaya hota hai na, gas piles, constipation,
Right.
anal fissures,
Right.
not having male progeny, go to so
Right.
and so, instead of in mainstream health.
Right.
You relegate it to they are good practitioners, but many of them are quacks as well. That
Yeah.
why
Thank
not in
you.
mainstream that?
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly that. So we had only a 15-day exposure during internship to this training. And with dear apologies to any Bengali who's listening to this show, it was under a doctor whose name was Dr. Nirod Banerjee, whose parents had obviously named him before Hindustan Latex started manufacturing condoms under the name of Nirod.
Right.
Now, one of the things was that of his own discomfort, in a dignified. So where is the language
Right.
of sexuality? That so we now use a windowed approach. That it's
Okay.
not about talking about the act. That we speak about relationships,
Right.
different kinds of relationships,
Right.
filial relationships, parent-child relationships, friendship, work relationships. Then we speak about commitment and levels of intimacy there.
Right.
Even in a work relationship, you have a certain affection and a
Right.
certain respect. And then what does romantic and intimacy means, and what is love? What are the different kinds of love? Love for the nation, love for nature,
Right.
love for music,
Right.
love for good food, love for the smell of a baby, the love for the smell of the first rain on earth,
Right.
um, love for a person, and then it comes to health, and then health and safety,
Right.
privacy and boundaries,
Right.
consent and permission.
Right.
And then you come to, and when we speak about safety, we speak about general safety, sharp
Right.
objects, electricity, depending on the age of the child. That
Right.
So that's how conversations start.
Right.
So you give them the concept first, the larger framework, and then there are different aspects of that, and then you touch on. So this brings me to a very interesting situation. This is many years ago, 20, 25 years ago, when I was doing my first sessions in a school, group of 14-year-old boys school, session on sexuality at the height of the HIV pandemic.
Okay.
And where the adolescent and sexual and reproductive health was a big issue because of HIV. That 40-minute session, 20-minute question, Q&A kind of. And there was this particular boy that I'd noticed, and he looked like trouble, because I could see from his eyes that he was intelligent, he
Right.
was curious, and he was trouble.
Right.
And these were the beginnings of our own, uh, the beginnings of our own comfort and felicity with this kind of Q&A type came. Needless to say, said, yes, sir, is it okay to have sex with a woman when she's menstruating? I said, I thought for a moment, then collected my composure, and I said, let's forget about the sex and the menstruation. Who's the woman? Relative? Neighbor? Known person? Problem? No. Same guy. Sir, if that is not the problem, then is it okay? I said, listen, we live in the era, why I'm doing this program, because of the concern of, health and HIV and all that. So, safe sex, protection, multiple partners, so we need to keep all this in mind. That, sir, if that is not the problem, then is it okay? I said, look, in terms of contraception, conception, safe period, errors can take place even though you think you're in the safe period, so one, needs to keep in mind that though you think that it's a relatively safe period, errors are known to occur. Sir, if that is not the problem, then is it okay? I said, look, the opportunity that men and boys have to explore sexuality and the opportunity that women and girls have to explore sexuality in a patriarchal, heterosexist, homophobic society is such a problem. And where your ideology is that, is it sexuality in the context of a loving, committed relationship? Or is it, just a passing, like a one-off thing, like a one-night thing? And what respect does it, so is it embedded in the context of a relationship? Not that any of it is right or wrong,
Right.
but it's an ideology that, sir, if that is not the problem, then is it okay? I said, boss, some people think it is kinky and exciting, some people think it is yucky and distasteful. It's a personal choice of what people do that. Now, Shruti, imagine if this question had been put by this kid to a teacher or
Right.
a parent, that
Right.
is it okay to have sex with a woman when she's menstruating? The response would have been to ek jhapar dekhi, very
Right.
nonsense. Where do you get all these very stupid ideas from? Take away
Right.
his phone,
Yeah.
Now, what have I done? I have not endorsed anything. The issue is not about my endorsing, but I gave them a framework. Who is the person? Relationship context, conception, contraception, health and safety context,
Right.
the health issue, the respect and dignity issue,
Right.
personal choice issue.
Right.
Now, of the 40, 50 kids who were there, even if 35 imbibe this framework, it gives them a solid frame. This is called life skills education,
Right.
which means my willingness uh, to, to dialogue and to converse in easy and comfortable ways in
Right.
language that is not unsettling or yucking people out, but in a way that gives them that the the the, the basic information
Right.
and a basic framework to then make healthy choices, informed choices.
Right.
So that's the kind of stuff that we really need to think about. Of
Right.
we have a lot of this present in our training manuals. If you look at our public domain website, which is www.nimhanschildproject.in, NIMHANS, nimhanschildproject.in. It's a public domain, free access. We don't believe in copyright. We believe in copy left or copy left, right, and center. That there is material there. If you look at the training manuals, um, and you scroll down, you'll see there are manuals of children who get into problems. And if you look at the sections on sexuality, you'll see how a lot of these things can be used and done at home as conversations, as activities, watching films together and discussing that
Right.
on themes of commitment, on themes of relationship, on
Right.
themes of attraction,
Right.
and on themes that do not objectify women, on
Right.
themes of informed um, acceptance of alternative sexualities. So there are all these kind of conversations that the home becomes a collaborative community where we jointly construct knowledge
Right.
through um, and therefore the issue for parents is to say is not to say I'm open to any behavior. You do whatever the heck you want. After 18, you can do whatever you want. I'm open to any discussion.
Right.
No discussion is taboo.
Right.
But
Right.
options in behaviors, there is a caveat. And it doesn't matter, Shruti, whether you're
Yeah.
14 or whether you're 34 or whether you're 64. The same
Right.
parameters hold
Right.
of relationship context, of health and safety,
Right.
of privacy and boundaries, of consent
Right.
and permission,
Right.
of respect and dignity is the same
Yeah.
parameters.
Yeah.
Over
I
to you.
think I think when you brought up the relevant anecdote, one thing that you did bring up, and which was one of my next questions, is that when you talk about childcare or upbringing, one of the major things that kind of impacts that in today's day and age is the digital impact, right? Or the internet and everything that follows and comes with it, the entire entourage,
Right.
right? So, what is
Right.
your take on children and digital dependence and how we can kind of subvert that? Almost like a follow up question to the same thing, if I may. Um, is that when a lot of our older generations, they were kids, the culture was for them to go out, play, do physical activity and socialize and learn through those experiences.
Right.
Today, I think the culture is to bring that outside to the kids inside, which I think is also a phenomena because of the digital age and the internet and things like that. Could you kind of give us your 2 cent on these two things, kind of combining the two, perhaps?
This issue, Shruti, also has to be seen in the light of COVID and
Right,
lockdowns.
exactly.
Schools are
Yes,
closed. That
right,
so I think we are in an unusual
right,
situation here.
right,
This also has to be seen in the light of the fact that even before COVID,
right,
digital education and online education had already started
right,
and franchised and so on.
right,
And the national education policy is also fairly heavily embracing technology
right,
and digital modes of delivery.
right,
Um, there is no predictability as far as COVID is concerned as to when the curve will flatten out completely,
so,
when we will reach herd immunity, when the vaccine will come,
right,
how many samples of the vaccine will come. If uh, 27 crore samples are coming, what about the 100 crore rest of the country?
right,
There are all these imponderables to really deal with. That
right,
so I suspect that online and digital is going to continue for the next 1 or 2 years.
right,
And the cliche of the new normal now has, and you used a very uh, strategic word, and the word is called subversion.
right,
How do we subvert it or
right,
convert it to? So let's look at it in perspective. That there are a group of children who will have problematic digital use.
right,
This is called behavioral addiction,
right,
internet gaming disorder, pathological screen time, pornography, excessive use of social media, uh, social identity, and all the predators who are there in the virtual world. Because
right,
cyber safety and cyber abuse also is an issue that we have to think of.
right,
Now, those are that may not be the substantial concern or anxiety we need to have, but
right,
there are a group of children and adolescents who will have behavioral addiction, and that needs to be dealt with at a professional level,
right,
and there are ways to do that. I may not have the luxury of time to go into what is the treatment for
right,
behavioral addiction or for internet gaming disorder.
sure,
Even in gaming, there are serious adolescent gamers.
yes,
They are good, they are
right,
making money,
right,
and um, it, it, and gaming is a big industry.
right,
But as is pornography, it's a big industry. Does that mean that we encourage children to go into that industry in the adult film industry? No, of course not. Because it's a question of safety, and
right,
it's a question of what is within the legal parameters. The second issue is as far as education itself is concerned. Let's leave aside inappropriate digital content for the time being, violence,
right,
sexuality. Let's look at education itself. And when COVID hit and the lockdown started, the National Council for Education Research and Training, NCERT, had already come up with a fairly substantive digital kind of, but it had a very significant component on not just on the platforms through which you do it, but on mental health and well-being
right, right,
and safety curbs.
right,
NEP 2020 is also speaking about these safety curbs.
right,
and checks and balances that for education, young children are concerned, preschoolers, 6 7 year olds, the suggestion is that they should be allowed a maximum of 1 to 2 hours of screen time, and that too not continuously, because for an average 3 year old the attention span is only 15 minutes.
Right.
So you break it up,
Right.
and as children grow older you can increase the time, but you break it up. That
Right.
there is also something known as processed versus unprocessed screen time.
Okay.
And what one can do as parents to convert screen time into socialization experiences
Right.
is to make this experience processed. Now, what does this mean, processed versus unprocessed? Unprocessed means a 5 year old is sitting in front of the screen watching, and no one is talking to the child. We don't know what the child is thinking, what the child is processing. Are they just images?
Right.
Are they frightening? We don't know.
Right.
Whereas if you're sitting with the child and the child is seeing and you say, "Arey, wo dekh, arey, wo gir gaya. Oh, look at that, he's drinking water." You're converting that image
Right.
into language, and the language into information, and the information into knowledge, and the knowledge into application.
Right.
So that's how learning takes place,
Right.
associative kind of. So that's something that one can do.
Okay.
As far as inappropriate content and accessing of inappropriate content is concerned, and the whole issue of cyber safety, there are the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights has taken serious cognizance of this issue. Recently, had attended a meeting on their invitation, looking at issues of cyber safety, and a lot of people from the cyber safety cell of the government and from the IT sector and the education sector were there to put some of these checks and balances into place. That
Mm-hmm.
so it's a question of negotiating this reality in a manner that we accept that people like us are digital immigrants.
Right.
These kids are digital natives.
Right.
They're born into the digital world. They are wired differently.
Right.
For us it took us a little time to really master, and indeed we haven't mastered it completely.
Right.
We still have to rely on our tech team, and so that's the kind of framework through which this whole negotiation of children parenting and the digital world, education, age, inappropriate content, behavioral addiction,
Right.
how we put this together in a framework, processed, unprocessed, an agreement on time, using the digital to keep in touch, given the COVID scenario, to keep in touch with the extended family.
Right.
Now we have FaceTime, we have WhatsApp video, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Insta, and all that stuff, to keep in touch. So convert it into a social experience
Right.
rather than just a private experience that you're playing out in your own imagination, but which is not socially processed or socially engaging in a way that there is a back and forth. That so to encourage people to use these kind of stuff to inquire about the extended family. How are you doing? How's your health? And oh, Chacha fell ill, he's hospitalized. I hope things are not serious. That
Right.
do let us know if we can do something to assist from this end, and please keep giving us updates. And
Right.
this is what we mean by social intelligence and emotional intelligence. That so it can still be converted, subverted to actually serve the purpose of more holistic child development, rather than function under this anxiety and concern that this digital thing is going to completely make them into some kind of robotic,
Right.
completely private and autistic, kind of. It needn't be like that.
Right. Right. And the second part of the question, where I was intending to ask about, bringing the social world into the homes, and because of the inability in today's day and age to kind of go out, but it also applies to a highly digitally driven bunch of kids. It applies for that generation, right? What are your thoughts on that, quickly, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, the crux of the question is, if children cannot go out in the world, how do you bring the world back into the
Right.
house, into
Right.
the institution? That
Right.
I've often spoken about this in other fora,
Huh.
plural
Okay.
of forum.
Okay.
Um, and the Austrian philosopher Rudolf Steiner, who propounded the whole thing called anthroposophy,
Okay.
that branch of philosophy that deals with the optimization of human potential. A lot
Okay.
of work with nature, with music, with movement, with art,
Okay.
including for children with special needs. One of the things
Right.
that I'd like to table at this point of time, because if there's a problem about going out for what we call as neurotypical children or the average,
Right.
what about children with special needs? For
Right.
them, it's like a lockdown within a lockdown, and in a
Right.
manner of speaking.
Right.
So how do you, bring the world back into the child and stoke the imagination? A word that Shruti particularly likes, stoked.
Right.
I noticed.
Yes.
And one way to do that is, whether it is digitally or whether it is through real experiences. I mean, what does it take to have a small pot with mud and sand in it and ask this child to put a couple of mustard and coriander seeds and actually nurture the plant, and it germinates within 3 days, and for the pleasure to see that, and when you actually use it in cooking,
Right.
and for the child to feel that something that I planted and I nurtured is being used in cooking, and so the whole cycle of life,
Right.
as it were, that so you can bring in images that put two chairs together, put a bed sheet on top of it, uh, play some beach music, put some digital lights on the wall, and imagine you're in a beach resort. Bring some
Right.
orange juice, and
Right.
create imagination within the family, and these are what memories are. And
Right.
when I spoke about memories when we start, what do you remember about your childhood? For this child to say, what I remember about my
Yeah.
this whole COVID thing, what fun things we did at home, yeah,
Right.
and how we used all this digital, we used to sort of convert the whole thing into, like we go to a movie hall, that so let this uh, kid be the owner of this mall, and we'll all come in and buy tickets
Right.
and sit in there, and he will be the ticket seller, the usher, the
Right.
popcorn seller, the projectionist.
Right.
So you're giving the child all kinds of identities,
Right.
and how many people enable that movie to take, and the popcorn maker as well.
Right.
So you
Right.
pop the corn and you keep it, and then you're the popcorn seller, and
Right.
you're the projectionist, you're the usher,
Right.
you're the ticket seller, and you're part of the audience.
Right.
And then you watch the digital movie on
Right.
Netflix or Amazon or
Right.
whatever that. So that's the way that we can vitalize our lives in an evocative way, so that we create these memories. uh, and when the story of COVID, Spanish influenza के बारे में श्रुति अब भी कहानियां लिखी जाती हैं, और
Right.
ये कहानी जो है, it's just brought the whole world down to its knees. This is
Right.
going to be written in the history of mankind,
Yep.
100 years from now, when perhaps you and I may not be there.
Right.
uh, it'll be written in,
Right.
and hopefully, with how digital saving is done, this conversation that Shruti Parthasarthi and Shekhar Seshadri had on the 6th of
6th of November.
November
Right.
2020 on Dialogue Space would be preserved in eternity for
Right.
someone 100 years from now to hear,
Right.
and to say that we said this today, and we are saying this for those who will exist 100 years from now.
Right.
Remember us, folks. Remember these faces.
Right. Right. While I would love for this conversation to just go on and on, unfortunately, we're running out of time. I would quickly like to learn from you a little bit about your project that you're working at with Nimhans. You were talking to me about Katha and Kalpanai and things like that. Why don't you go ahead and talk to us a little bit about your project?
Lovely, Shruti. Thank you. So I believe a lot in public child mental health, because the landscape of the practice of child mental health is not sitting in the clinic and writing prescriptions. It's out there in all the spaces that children occupy and inhabit: the
Right.
streets, the
Right.
playgrounds, schools, childcare institutions, families, and so on. So we have started a massive project. It's a community project on, it's a national initiative and integrated resource for child protection, mental health, and psychosocial care, which wants to work with any child, every child in the health, education, and welfare sectors, which means school boards, schools, teachers, service providers, stakeholders, police, judiciary, child welfare committees, juvenile justice boards, families, parents, civil society,
Right.
educationists, journalists, government officials. And we're doing a lot of training on child protection and mental health, of how you can assist children
Right.
where protection risks are particularly high during the COVID and coming out of it due to the economic crunch,
Right.
particularly for migrant families and daily wage workers. And this is the time that the danger of child trafficking, child labor, and child marriage is exceedingly high. But for other children as well, the risks of their developmental needs not being met there too. So we have a YouTube channel and we have our social media handles both on Insta and Twitter and Facebook. And I would be happy to share the YouTube link, or perhaps Shruti
We'd be
has the
happy to
link.
put it up when we put up the interview on our different social
That would be
media.
excellent.
Yes.
So we did a series called August Talks, where we spoke about education, child rights in the context of COVID. Then we did Parenting Pathshala, a series of 10 sessions on different aspects of parenting in the context of substance abuse, sexuality, special needs child, disciplining, um, and so on and so forth. And then we are doing this series in November, which is the uh, Children's Day month and the International Child Rights Day, which is November 20th, when the Convention for the Rights of the Child was promulgated. That so this is called Kahaniyan or Kalpanaएं, and we'd be reading stories in 8 languages: Hindi, English, Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam, Marathi, Gujarati, and Nagamese. Uh,
Oh, okay.
and and so these are stories for children on different aspects of children's lives and their well-being. We'll also be doing a series on child protection called the Hifazat series. This is also the International Adoption Month, and we're going to do a series on adoption, 30 questions on adoption. Each session, each episode, 2 questions, which the team will answer on adoption. We are strong proponents of adoption. We believe very strongly in the power of adoption.
Right.
And so there are all this stuff that we are putting out on our YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to the channel and pass it on to your networks. Subscribe means you only have to click. There's no money involved.
Right.
And pass it on to your networks. And so that you can enjoy these programs, which is all about celebrating childhood and ensuring that children have a wholesome and a holistic childhood, growing up into productive and joyous citizens.
Right. I don't think anything more needs to be said. I'm still catching up on a lot of those talks that you spoke about. So I can't wait for the rest of the content to come out. Thank you so
Lovely.
much, sir. Before we wind up and before I take your closing thoughts, I just have one last and final question. Like you said, we're all part of history. These are trying and testing times. What have you been doing, or what is it that you do that kind of keeps you upbeat and optimistic in these times? Along with any closing thoughts that you may have.
I just work harder than I have ever worked before. I have 1 year to retire, and I've taken on the biggest project of my life. And I'm thoroughly enjoying every day working with a vibrant and creative bunch of people. But music is a great solace in my life, since I'm a performing musician. And I connect with a lot of social spaces and creative and theater spaces to do my bit, to really reach out to any space through which, the message of mental health and well-being, particularly the mental health and well-being of children, can be taken, and to really look at the whole issue of conversations and communication. That
Right.
and and particularly in COVID, when a lot of things are happening in people's lives, loss experiences, grief experiences, and sometimes you have to convey bad news to people. Sometimes you have to understand what it means for a child in a situation of difficulty. So I'd just like to end with 3 quick quotes. One from Charles Dickens in Great Expectations, when he said, There is no feeling, no emotion in the world that is stronger than the emotion of a child who has been treated unfairly.
Right.
The second is what Mark Twain said, that in the eternal laws of proportion, the loss of a doll for a child and the loss of a crown for an emperor are events of the same magnitude.
Right.
And finally, what Emily Dickinson said, tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies too bright for our infirm delight. The truth's superb surprise as lightning to the children eased with explanation kind. The truth must dazzle gradually, else every man be blind.
On that note, I think thank you so much, sir. Like I've been saying, we are really stoked to have had you in this conversation, and thank you so much for giving us so much information. Thank you for giving us your time. I'm sure a lot of people have benefited from this conversation. We'll be sure to put your, YouTube, Instagram,
Thank
Facebook,
you.
all your links.
Thank you.
And more power to you, sir. 1 year retirement. I think you should power through. And Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. We will see you in another session of Dialogues That Matter, where we speak about change makers who are doing stellar work in their own field. This is Children's Day month, so we have some really interesting conversations coming forward. Sir was an exemplary example of that. So thank you so much, guys. I will see you next Friday. Thank you so much, sir.